You get home after spending time with people you genuinely like. Nothing went wrong. The conversation flowed. You laughed at the right moments. You listened. You responded. On the surface, everything looks normal. But the moment the door closes behind you, something drops inside your body. You don't feel sad. You don't feel anxious. You just feel empty. Like your energy didn't slowly fade, it was quietly drained. You sit down and realize you don't want to talk anymore. Not to friends, not to family, not even to people you care about. And that's the confusing part, because you do like people. You're not awkward. You're not antisocial. You didn't feel uncomfortable while you were there. So why does your body feel like it just ran a marathon after what was supposed to be a pleasant, ordinary social interaction? Most people would tell you this means you're introverted, or sensitive, or socially anxious. But what if this exhaustion has very little to do with liking people, and much more to do with how your mind stays present around them? From the outside, people assume social exhaustion only happens when something goes wrong. An awkward silence, a tense interaction, a conflict you didn't expect. So when you say you feel drained after a perfectly fine social experience, it often gets dismissed. You're overthinking. You just need to relax more. You're probably just introverted. And while those explanations sound neat, they miss something important. Because your exhaustion doesn't come from discomfort. It comes from presence. You don't drift through conversations on autopilot. When you're with people, you're actually there. You're tracking tone, reading subtle shifts, noticing pauses, facial changes, emotional undercurrents, even when no one else names them. You don't do this because you're insecure. You do it because your mind is highly attuned. To others, you seem easygoing, engaged, socially capable. But what they don't see is the quiet internal work happening the entire time. Your nervous system stays slightly alert, not because there's danger, but because it's calibrated to connection, to harmony, to not missing what matters between people. Society tends to label this as being too sensitive or too intense. But that framing is shallow. What it really is a form of social responsibility your system learned early. To stay aware, regulated, and responsive in shared space. So when the interaction ends, your body doesn't crash because it hated the experience. It finally lets go. And that release can feel like emptiness. Not because something is wrong with you, but because something has been quietly held the entire time. To understand why socializing drains you, even when it feels good, it helps to stop thinking of exhaustion as a reaction to stress and start seeing it as a reaction to sustained regulation. Your brain isn't just exchanging words when you're with people. It's running a background process the entire time. Imagine your nervous system as a sound engineer in a room full of voices. Nothing is wrong with the sound. No alarms are going off. But the engineer is constantly adjusting levels, slightly lowering one channel, slightly raising another, so everything stays balanced. That's what your mind is doing socially. You're monitoring how much of yourself to show. You're pacing your responses. You're choosing tone carefully. You're making sure the emotional temperature stays comfortable for everyone involved. None of this is conscious in a loud way. It's quiet, automatic, polished. And because it's quiet, people assume it costs nothing. But regulation always costs energy. Some nervous systems are built to externalize energy. They recharge through stimulation, movement, and constant exchange. Others are built to contain energy, to process inwardly, to hold awareness, to stay subtly vigilant. Yours leans toward containment. So when you're socially present, your brain doesn't relax into the moment, it maintains the moment. This often develops early. When a system learns that staying emotionally aware keeps things smoother, less conflict, fewer misunderstandings, more stability, it becomes very good at it. Not out of fear, out of intelligence. Your brain learned that connection works best when someone is paying close attention, so it volunteered you. That doesn't mean socializing is unsafe. It means your mind treats social space as something worth tending. The exhaustion afterward isn't burnout, it's decompression. Like a muscle that's been holding a steady position for a long time, finally allowed to release. That's why the tiredness feels specific, not frantic, not anxious, just deep, heavy, quiet. Your system isn't signaling that you did something wrong. It's signaling that you were fully engaged, and that kind of engagement, even when it's warm and meaningful, has a cost. Here's the part that's harder to sit with. Not all social exhaustion comes from natural temperament alone. Sometimes, what feels like preference is also protection, and the two can quietly overlap. Your nervous system didn't just learn how to be attentive. It learned when attentiveness mattered most. If, at some point, being emotionally present helped prevent tension, if reading the room early helped you avoid conflict, if staying regulated made things feel more stable for everyone else, then your system may have internalized a quiet rule. Connection works best when I'm the one holding it together. That rule isn't dramatic. It doesn't feel like fear. It feels like responsibility. So even in safe, pleasant social settings, a part of you may still be working a little harder than necessary. Not because danger is present, but because your body remembers what used to be required. This doesn't mean you're broken, and it doesn't mean your exhaustion is a problem to fix. But it does invite a gentle question. Are you tired because you're deeply yourself around people? Or because you're subtly managing the emotional space? There's no wrong answer. For many people, it's both. What matters isn't deciding which one is true. It's noticing that your system might not fully distinguish between enjoyment and responsibility yet. And when those two get blended, even good connection can feel heavier than expected. That awareness doesn't demand change. It simply creates room. Room for your nervous system to learn that not every interaction needs full calibration. Room for presence that doesn't require constant holding. The truth is uncomfortable only because it asks you to notice effort where you once saw identity. And noticing doesn't take anything away. It gives you back choice. If socializing leaves you drained, it doesn't mean you dislike people. And it doesn't mean there's something fragile about you. It means your system values depth over volume. You don't skim interactions. You enter them. And when you enter fully, you bring awareness, care, and regulation with you, even when no one asks you to. That capacity didn't come from nowhere. It formed because it was useful, because it helped create smoother connection, because at some point, being attuned made things feel safer or more meaningful. So the exhaustion you feel afterward isn't a flaw. It's feedback. Not telling you to withdraw, not telling you to change who you are. Just reminding you that presence has weight, and weight requires release. When you step back into quiet after being with people, your system isn't shutting down, it's returning to balance. That space you crave afterward, the silence, the stillness, the lack of input, isn't avoidance, it's integration. It's where your mind processes what it held. Understanding this doesn't suddenly make socializing effortless, but it does soften the self-judgment that often follows. You don't have to label yourself as introverted or sensitive to justify your tiredness. You don't have to pathologize your need for recovery. You're allowed to enjoy connection and need space afterward. Both can be true. And when you stop interpreting your exhaustion as failure, something shifts. You begin to meet yourself with the same quiet care you offer others. If this explanation felt familiar, let it sit with you. You don't need to act on it, just notice. Sometimes understanding is already enough to let the body exhale.